What is your biggest financial concern? Are you being as intentional with your finances as you could be? How confident are you that you'll reach your financial goals? How will life's transitions impact your financial plan? Welcome to the Clarity and Confidence for Life podcast with Tom Fleishel, founder, president, and CEO of FleishelFinancial Associates. Discover how we can help business owners, successful families, and corporate executives achieve clarity and confidence for life while providing tailored financial solutions that eliminate complexity and free you up to focus on what really matters in life to you and your family. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Clarity and Confidence for Life podcast with your host, Tom Fleishel, where we help you get clear about your goals so you have confidence moving forward. I'm Wendy McConnell. Hi, Tom. How are you?
Great. Good morning.
Good morning. And what are we going to be talking about today?
Today, we are starting a first part of the three-part series on retirement. And the first one we're going to talk about today is, well, how much money do I need for retirement? Do I have enough?
That's always the big question.
That's the big one.
So how do I know if I have enough?
Well, it's not really all about cash flow projections. A lot of people think, I'm trying to get down to a budgeting and figure that all out. But I do believe you first want to just start with getting really clear on your specific goals for retirement. Now, this should include discussion with both you and your spouse, because both people want to have some input. You don't want to just have one person determining, what our future retirement should look like. So, when we're planning for retirement, we suggest setting specific goals for really, what you want to have for monthly income from all sources. Let's talk about those sources for just a minute. So obviously in everybody's mind, Social Security. And Social Security, of course, was not meant to be the sole means of retirement income. It was meant to be a supplement to other things. Just to give an example, as of June of this year, 2023, the average Social Security check is only about $1,700 a month. That's according to the Social Security Administration. And if you really want to know what your numbers are, you can go online to ssa.gov and set up a login to get your estimates of what you would have, at different ages, 63, 65, full retirement age or longer. So that's the first component. What am I going to be able to have from that to bank on? Hopefully we will be that secure.
Yeah.
And then the second one is personal savings. That's the other, I'm going to have to take, what can I take from my personal savings? And then if you're fortunate enough to have a pension, most people do not these days. It's mostly 401k type of things, but a pension is rare, but it's offered for people that are in government work or teachers. We call it the three-legged retirement stool if you have Social Security, personal savings, and a pension. So 3 legs are better than 2. It's a little more stable.
Yeah. Not that common, though.
Not that common to have. Again, the pension, most people do not have that to bank on. Some of your other goals that you can include are, we need to factor in what's kind of an annual travel budget do we want to maintain? Do we need a new car in 5 years? Is there a big home remodeling project? What about that big anniversary vacation? Our 30th year anniversary, we want to go to Europe, whatever. Maybe something with charitable giving or a legacy fund to leave to your heirs. So all these things kind of need to go into the equation of what specific financial goals do we have at that time in our life. And you want to think about downtime and things you've always wanted to try or places you wanted to go. Who do you want to be with? Do you have someone you love to meet with for coffee or brunch? Are there some friends who share the same hobbies? The years leading up to retirement are a great time to branch out, meet new people, strengthen the friendships you already have. Are there any activities you like or groups you can join? When you no longer have coworkers, who are you going to spend the time with? It's your first day of retirement. What are you going to do?
Sleep in.
That's good. That's usually a good one to start with.
Yes. But what else? We do need to consider other things.
A lot of people say, well, will I need more than I make now or less. So again, we need to be realistic about your retirement spending and your expenses. So I think we run into more people that underestimate how much they'll spend after they retire, especially if they're still paying a mortgage or unexpected medical bills occur. So many people we find have overspent in the first few years of retirement by a lot of travel. They have more time to spend and travel and to buy things, make big investments and big bucket list items. They see more time, they can get online and shop. That kind of thing can really eat into your planning. So, retirees are no longer working 40 plus hours a week. They're still relatively healthy. They want to shop, go sightseeing, enjoy the fruits of a lifetime of labor. So I think some of the more analytical types may find it helpful to work from a semi-flexible budget to get a little more detailed and accurate idea of monthly income needs in retirement. Some people just don't really have the discipline or the desire to dig in the weeds with crunching the numbers and looking at a budget, and they don't want to have to do that. But it will be helpful to some people if they're trying to estimate what do we think we want to spend and what would that look like. So, for example, we had someone who met with recently. They're making $180,000 while working, and they thought they could get by with about $60,000 in retirement. That's probably not realistic. That's a lot less than half of what you're making now.
Oh, yeah.
So how do you think that's going to go? If you really want to get down into the weeds, that's probably just not going to be enough income. And I think you're going to be very disappointed.
Yeah. We have to consider inflation too. That's a hot topic right now, right?
Absolutely. Inflation's been on everybody's mind the last couple of years. And it eats away at your purchasing power. The cost of living increases every single year. And we've seen so painfully over the last couple of years. So it's certainly not safe to assume that you will spend less per month or on expenses when you retire. On average, in the last few years, inflation was much lower in the 2.5% range. But over the longer term, it's been 3 to 4. And that's how much it's going to reduce your spending power every single year. So we think to be safe, you need to plan on covering at least 80% of your pre-retirement monthly budget. And this approach will also help you adjust for any unforeseen expenses. So inflation is definitely one of the most important factors that have to be adjusted for as you think about your long lifetime expenses.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go out on a limb here. Full disclosure that I was born in 1957. I just had a birthday. And I got one of those on this day in history pieces that gives all the info on prices back then, what the best movies were, who was the president. So in 1957, a loaf of bread was 19 cents.
Mm.
What is it now?
5 something.
$5. That's crazy.
Yes.
Gas was 31 cents a gallon.
Wow.
Now we're looking at $3.50 to $4 a gallon. The average car, $2,100.
Mm. Which was astronomical then, I'm sure.
Yes. Depends on whether you want the Tesla, the Lexus, or the BMW, or just your Chevy Volt.
Yeah.
So you know what else, though? The Dow Industrial Average was at 436 in 1957. Today, well, as of yesterday, it closed at 33,168. So that's around a 6.78% annualized return over those 66 years. So we don't suggest taking more than that 4% at the risk of depleting your principal over time, unless you just have a very substantial portfolio and you can take 2 or 3% and get by. That's great. But what we find is most people are somewhere in that 4.5 maybe range. So, we want to protect the goose that's laying the golden eggs. Yeah. We don't want to put too much pressure on the goose so the eggs don't get smaller or they stop at some point.
Yep.
So, stocks have proven to be the best inflation hedge over the long term. So if you're taking 4% and you want to achieve, a 6 to 8% long-term return to keep up with inflation, that's going to help because like in the example I mentioned, if stocks did 6.78% over the last 66 years, and you're taking maybe 3.5%, you're going to have a little bit left over for that inflation growth. So, another important thing to consider is how long your portfolio has to last. How long are we going to be on this earth? And we don't want to cash our last check with 3 years left to go before we die.
Oh, no.
So this is all determined by assumptions we have to make about your longevity. How long did your parents live? How long have your siblings lived? What's been your health history in your family? Because this is going to determine how much you can safely withdraw each year and how you should continue to maintain your investments. The average lifespan is increasing. People are living longer. And now as we sit down with clients and say, okay, let's plan, and they're now talking into their 90s for most people instead of 70s or 80s. And so some people in retirement might have to have 25 to 30 years of income to sustain them over the rest of their life. And think how much, income that's going to be needed with inflation over that time. So, our retirement funds really have to last a lot longer than they once did. So how are we going to determine that? How are we going to figure out how this all can come together? You do need a little bit more in the weeds analytical tools to be able to figure this out. And there's some great tools out there, sophisticated ones like something called Monte Carlo simulation that factors in all of your current assets, your income sources, your goals, inflation assumptions, your longevity, and the rates of return and risk factors. And we know that you're not going to get that 6 to 8% return every single year. It's going to be 10 one year, to another, -8 another, up 10. It's going to vary quite a bit. And so this allows for over 1,000 different market conditions from awful to mediocre to fantastic. And it factors in all those market conditions to give us the best kind of an estimate that we can say, okay, out of 1,000 trials, we want to make sure that your strategy has about a 75 to 80% success rate. And this can tell us that with that Monte Carlo simulation when we plug in all those numbers. And if it doesn't come out too good, well, we have to make some adjustments. If you wanted 8,000 a month, we might have to skinny that down to 7,500 a month income. Or if you wanted to retire at 62, we might have to work another year to make that work. There's all kinds of adjustments and sliders that we can do real time to make sure that we hit those percentages of success that we're looking for. Mm-hmm. So all those are important ways that we can really get in the weeds to determine. Otherwise, you're kind of throwing darts, hoping for the best without really getting in the weeds and running this. And sometimes people rely on their 401k, might have on their website that the 401k have some kind of retirement plan adjuster, but it's real, cursory, and it's not going to be in the weeds and in depth as you need to really be to get all those things factored in. So, if you plan to buy a home, relocate, or fund a child's education after retirement, all those things need to be factored into your plan as early as possible. And we certainly suggest that you need to redo it, at least once a year, because tax laws change, your goals might change, your priorities have changed. Could be all kinds of different things that need to be adjusted. No plan is a set it and forget it. It's something that we have to keep doing and regularly reviewing to make sure we're on track, because we want to monitor our goals and monitor the progress we're on the goals to make sure that we're hitting them. And then what about those unexpected major health event expenses, long-term care, or geez, I didn't expect to have to provide financial assistance to my mom that she's going into a nursing home. Those things, how in the world do we account for those?
Yeah. So what are the best ways to account for the unexpected, like you're mentioning, like non-insured medical expenses or long-term care?
Well, we first have to make sure that you've got all your good Medicare coverage in place and supplementals that are out there, the A, B, C, D, E, F, Gs of the different types of policies that we can tap into. Get with your provider, your health insurance provider. That was very helpful for me. My insurance agent really helped us dive into the different options and the different supplemental programs, and I think pick the best one that's suitable for us. So then you want to make sure you're looking into long-term care coverage. And that's another whole topic. Everybody has an opinion about long-term care. they've seen bad examples, or they've had experiences with their parents or family members that didn't have it, and how much it cost them. So the cost of long-term care is skyrocketing. And so there's a lot of studies out there. The Genworth cost of care survey, the average stay for a private room in a nursing center here in Central Florida is $122,000 almost, or $96,000 for a semi-private room per year. That's about $8,000 to $10,000 a month. Yeah. So without long-term care insurance, you'll have to pay the highest amount out of pocket at the time you or your spouse have a need. So if you're in your 60s now and it's 20 years from now, just think how much that's going to be. So you're either going to, have some kind of coverage, or just going to go blind and say, hope it never happens. But if you do, if you do have an event, you're going to wish that you had some kind of protection. And it's the coverages have really improved over the last few years. There's newer generation policies. It's not the old use it or lose it, where you pay a premium every single year. And if you never have a health event, you never need long-term care coverage. That's money out the window. And that's why a lot of people kind of have their own biases against it. And they have all these lame excuses that we've seen. I'm just going to have my son take care of me. Do you really want your son changing your diaper?
How does your son feel about that?
Yeah, yes, right. And then, I'm just going to jump off a cliff. I hear all these crazy things. Oh, no. But, these newer generation policies are much more flexible. It's more of an asset-based strategy where you plunk a chunk of money in. It's just like putting it out of pocket A to pocket B. And when you put it into pocket B, it can leverage your premiums at sometimes 3 to 4 times the amount you put in for long-term care. There's no way that you could get a return on investments realistically to even come close to what these long-term care policies can leverage for the benefits. And they often have a life insurance benefit, so that if you don't ever need the long-term care coverage, the heirs receive a tax-free life insurance benefit. Oh. So some of them also add on an inflation adjustment on the long-term care benefits that can grow with market-like returns. So you're not just stuck with a 3% inflation adjustment. You can get up to, much higher opportunities for that benefit to grow over time until you need it. So those are some of the best strategies that we've seen lately. There's a lot of things out there that people need to really look into seriously to make sure, that you address this issue.
Obviously, these newer policies sound so much better and more, productive for the consumer, which is not usually the case. So I really like the sound of that.
Yeah, and in fact, that's the type of policy that my wife and I ended up getting. Finally, after doing this for several years with clients, one of my clients finally said, "Well, Tom, which one of these do you have?" And I had to practice what I preach, and we definitely got some coverage. So, I'm not going to do anything that I wouldn't do for my clients. It's important that we make sure we address these risks that are out there. I always jokingly tell clients, if you don't get this coverage, we kind of joke and say, you can always tell who's been swimming naked when the tide goes out.
Oh, okay, Tom. All right. With that, what's the best way to get in touch with your team if anybody would like some more information on this important topic, especially about these newer generation policies?
Absolutely. They can reach out to us at our website, FleishelFinancial.com, and you can schedule a 15-minute phone call right on there with our calendar, or you can call us at 386-738-1800. And I just wanted to wrap up and say also that, this next part we're going to cover is discussing planning for the non-financial side of retirement. We kind of talked today about the financial side, but next part 2, we're going to dive into a little bit more about the non-financial issues and thinking about retirement. So that'll be fun. We're looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Tom. And thank you for listening today. Please like, follow, and share this podcast with your friends. When you hit that follow or subscribe button, it really helps to get the podcast out to other people. Until next time, I'm Wendy McConnell.
Thank you for listening to the Clarity and Confidence for Life podcast. Click the subscribe button to be notified of new episodes when they become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the hosts and/or guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Raymond James. This content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional financial advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have regarding your individual situation. Securities are offered through Raymond James Financial Services Incorporated, member FINRA, and SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors Incorporated. Fleishel Financial Associates is not a broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services.